What if you woke up at your own funeral? For Fagilyu Mukhametzyanov in Kazan, Russia, this nightmare became reality. In 2011, at just 49, Fagilyu collapsed at home from a suspected heart attack. Her husband Fagilyu called for help, but paramedics pronounced her dead. The family, trusting the doctors, began mourning and preparing for her funeral. This wasn't a story from the distant past, it happened in a modern city, under professional care. Fagilyu's case challenges our faith in medicine and the finality of death. The line between life and death proved far more fragile than anyone imagined. The official declaration of death set off a chain of events no one could have predicted. Her loved ones, devastated, never suspected she might still be alive. The rituals of grief began, all based on a single catastrophic mistake. What followed would shock not just her family, but the world. Sometimes the unthinkable really does happen. Fagilyu lived an ordinary life in Kazan until the day she collapsed without warning. Her husband's desperate call brought paramedics, but they found no signs of life and declared her dead. The family was plunged into mourning, forced to accept the impossible. A death certificate was issued and funeral preparations began. Friends and relatives gathered, sharing memories and grief. Her body was placed in an open casket as tradition dictated. The air was thick with sorrow, the house filled with mourners. Every step was taken in the belief that her story had ended. No one suspected the truth: Fagilyu was not truly gone. The family moved through the rituals of loss, unaware of the horror about to unfold. The stage was set for a moment that would defy belief. Sometimes tragedy hides a deeper, more shocking twist. The funeral began, mourners filing past Fagilyu's open coffin, lost in grief. Suddenly a faint gasp broke the silence. Fagilyu's eyes fluttered open. She was alive, staring up at her own funeral. Her scream of terror shattered the room, sending mourners into panic. Some screamed, others fled, unable to process what they were seeing. Fagilyu rushed to her side, hope and confusion battling in his eyes. The woman he'd mourned for 2 days was awake, terrified. The funeral turned to chaos as someone called for an ambulance. Mourners lifted her from the coffin, desperate to help. The finality of death had been violently interrupted. The same medical system that declared her dead was now racing to save her. In minutes, grief turned to frantic hope and then to fear for what would come next. The impossible had happened, but the ordeal was far from over. Sometimes reality is more terrifying than fiction. Paramedics arrived to a scene of chaos, finding Fagilyu alive but in shock. She was rushed to the hospital, her husband by her side, hope flickering. Doctors fought to stabilize her, but the trauma was too great. After just 12 minutes in intensive care, Fagilyu died again. This time, for good. Her husband's hope was crushed a second time. He demanded answers, furious at the mistake that cost his wife her life. The family faced a second round of grief, now mixed with anger and disbelief. The funeral had to be rescheduled, haunted by the memory of her awakening. Fagilyu's story became a public tragedy, a symbol of medical fallibility. The line between life and death had never seemed so thin. For her family, the pain was doubled, loss compounded by horror. Sometimes the truth is almost too much to bear. How could this happen? Experts suggested Fagilyu may have slipped into a coma or cataleptic state, her vital signs nearly undetectable. Without advanced equipment, paramedics made a fatal error. Her story became a global sensation, tapping into universal fears about death and medical mistakes. It forced the world to question, how certain are we about the moment of death? For Fagilyu, the tragedy was deeply personal. His wife's life lost twice to error and shock. His grief and anger turned a bizarre news story into a cautionary tale. Years later, Fagilyu's story still haunts those who hear it. It's a chilling reminder of the limits of medicine and the fragility of life. She woke at her own funeral only to die again from the horror of it. Some stories linger because they force us to confront the unthinkable.